The low pay for the MMA fighters, it definitely impacts them more so outside the UFC than it does inside the UFC, because when you're outside the UFC, you are making absolutely nothing.
Almost quitting from my career because it was difficult to keep my family and my dream on the sports.
They have to do Uber. They have to do Uber Eats.
He was sleeping in his car, and it was hard for him to maintain because he didn't have nowhere to live.
And make my name worth something, but I know guys better than me that I look up to that have had to sleep in their car and stuff, you know? So it's a little depressing sometimes.
My name is Andrew Cantarzi. I am a MMA manager, agent, living here in Miami, Florida. I work with several MMA fighters, UFC, Bellator, PFL, the American regional scene, as well as overseas, mainly in the former USSR countries. I don't think that it impacts their dedication and passion very much, because when you're an MMA fighter or a professional athlete, I think your dedication and passion for the sport is always going to be at a maximum level. No matter what the pay is, whether it's the highest pay or the lowest pay, this is what you love. This is what your passion is. This is what you've done growing up. A lot of these guys, they have to get jobs. They have to do Uber. They have to do Uber Eats. As a matter of fact, Pantoja, who is the featherweight champion of the world right now in the UFC, just 6 months ago, he was doing Uber Eats. To answer the question, it affects their performance. It affects many, many things, because they have to think about how are they going to feed their families? How are they going to make money? A lot of them have to get jobs, and when they get jobs, that means they can't train all the time. That means they're tired when they're training, mentally and physically. They just got to raise the salaries, you know? Like if you compare MMA to other professional sports, like for example, in the NFL, if you take all the salaries of all the NFL players, and you add it up and then you compare it to the revenue, I think it's 40%. It's always a percentage of the revenue that the league makes. So if the league makes a certain amount of money, then they say 30%, 20%, 50% of that revenue is dedicated to the pool of the UFC and MMA in general, they have to raise that, and they have to make less money.
Всем привет, меня зовут Арман Сарукян, я UFC боец. Выступаю за Армению, живу в России, тренируюсь в Америке. Вот, отвечу на первый вопрос. Да, зарплата низкая у бойцов, но на первом этапе очень низкая, даже в минусах. После как попадешь в UFC либо большие организации, уже выйдешь ровно, а если попадешь в топ-15, уже будет прибавляться. Но суть в том, что мы же знаем, для чего мы идем, и чемпионы в хороших организациях получают большие деньги, и мы к этому стремимся. У нас цель, которая нас движет.
What's up, guys? My name is Grant Dawson. I'm top 10 in the world in the lightweight division. My record is currently 20 wins and 1 loss. The low pay for the MMA fighters, it definitely impacts them more so outside the UFC than it does inside the UFC, because when you're outside the UFC, you are making absolutely nothing. And there have been plenty of situations where I've actually lost money in order to compete. This is bad for the fighters, but in the same way, I also think it is good for them, because it really shows which fighters want to be MMA fighters and which fighters are just doing it to be famous on Instagram. So when you're low level and you're making no money and you're working like 4 or 5 jobs just to get by and training, it really shows how dedicated you are to the sport.
Ну, здесь можно сказать по-разному, у кого какие предпочтения. Допустим, у меня была другая ситуация. У меня была цель стать чемпионом и выигрывать, достигать цели. А низкая зарплата, да, это проблема. Многие ребята, которые талантливые ребята, в связи с том, что у них нет финансов, хорошей зарплаты, они просто-напросто не занимаются спортом, а начинают работать.
One of my friends was about to fight for the title actually right now in top 2 major promotion in the world. He used to do landscaping job full-time, come all dirty to the training, and be one of the best and most dedicated guys in the room, and just go back right to work, because he was dedicated and he knew what he wanted, and he knew what is the finish goal. I know some people who was already in UFC, but they have to work as a waitresses or bouncers in the clubs. I think pay should be bigger. The companies, the promotions of the MMA, especially major ones, should share more revenue they get from the pay-per-views and sponsors to the fighters.
Если честно, не так много случаев смогу рассказать, в силу того, что я не являюсь большим фанатом этого спорта. Как я и сказал, я фанат тяжелых тренировок. Но, как мы все знаем, да, много чемпионов UFC. такие как, может быть, вот мой одноклубник Пантожа, который там совсем недавно, может быть, работал в службе доставки. У него не было другого выбора, кроме как тяжело тренироваться. Тот же Хабиб, да, он выходец из бедной семьи, у которых не всегда было все, что им нужно. И тот же Оливейра, бывший чемпион, тоже выходец, да, из такой бедной семьи.
I'm Dakota Ditchbar. I am signed with the PFL and my record at the moment is 8-0. I think injuries is a big one, you know. Like once you get injured, it's hard to, you know, try and pay for rehab on an injury at the same time as keep training going and keep up the costs of the fighter's life, you know. I think that's where sponsors are a big help to us, but that's where promotions need to back us up a little bit and, you know, give us a little bit more back for us to be able to put on a better entertainment and a better show.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Николай, я работаю спортивным массажистом. Большинство моих клиентов это профессиональные боксеры, ну и бойцы MMA, ну из топ-лиг UFC, Bellator, PFL и прочих. Но это влияет таким образом, что, в принципе, многие начинающие спортсмены видят картинку красивую по телевизору, в социальных сетях, когда их кумиры ездят на красивых машинах, живут в красивых местах, и это их мотивирует на то, чтобы усерднее заниматься. Но когда они сталкиваются с реальностью, попадают в этот спорт, они, приходится им понимать то, что их гонорара даже не всегда будет хватать на то, чтобы подготовиться к их бою и чтобы выступать на достаточно высоком уровне.
Hey, I'm Lucas Cortez. I'm from Tampa, Florida. I'm 1-0 as a professional fighter.
And thankful to be at American Top Team, best gym in the world.
Man, a lot of guys aren't getting what they're paid to. I'm a lower level right now, so I'm not really too worried about that. I'm still trying to make my climb and make my name worth something. But I know guys better than me that I look up to that have had to sleep in their car and stuff, you know. It's a little depressing sometimes. Guys I look up to with records of, 15 and 0 or 15 and 3 or something like that, crazy. And they're sleeping in a car, waiting for the gym. It's hard to keep that passion alive when it never really pays off, year after year.
Низкая зарплата может быть повлиять на кого-то, кого-то может быть смотивировать, больше тренироваться, больше соблюдать дисциплину, но в большей части это отрицательно влияет, потому что им надо содержать семью, кто-то женится.
My name is Marcos Damara. I am one of the head coaches at American Top Team. People need to make a good show to get paid, Sometimes people want to get paid before, they get to show what they have or to prove themselves, You need to make sure that you have good managers and you have good people around you to lead the way for you to get, paid in MMA. And I believe this can be done, okay? And you just need to be smart about it.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Алясхаб Хазреев, боец UFC. Да, конечно, многие бойцы оставили, потому что низкий заработок. В основном в Америке здесь почему многие хорошо дерутся, но возраст здесь особо не имеет значения, потому что здесь большие гонорары и заработная плата тоже в Америке побольше, чем у нас. А у нас за 50, за 100 тысяч, 150, 200, 300 тысяч рублей дерутся, и уже не хватает эти деньги, поэтому быстро спортсмены завершают карьеру. А здесь, соответственно, большие гонорары, поэтому здесь продолжаешь свой путь бойцовский.
My name's Christian Turner. I'm a professional fighter, 21 years old at American Top Team. I had a friend, and it affected him in a way where, he was trying to train, but he was sleeping in his car, and it was hard for him to maintain because he didn't have nowhere to live. So he's, sleeping in his car, and it gets tough, when you're trying to, chase a dream sometimes. You say financially, you just gotta, it's not there yet, but it's motivational too.
The head honchos, the bosses of the UFC, of Bellator, of PFL, they have to just take less and give the guys more. That's it. That's what it's going to come down to. That's the only reforms that could be made.
The UFC only pays for one cornerman and yourself flights. You have to pay for extra room, you have to pay for extra flights. I think paying for extra flights and another room for your cornerman would go a long way when it comes to MMA fighter payouts.
You need to make sure that you have good managers and you have good people around you to lead the way for you to get, paid in MMA.
Promotions just need to bring everything together a little bit more and work with the fighters rather than just using them for the entertainment sometimes.